there, my sweet friends, and welcome to day 6 of our 12 Days of Christmas in July series. If you're just joining in, you can find links for the first 5 days at the top of the description. And as always, make sure to listen throughout the video for the question of the day. For today's project, we are going to meet in the middle of all the layers in Clean and Simple. I have a little bit of finishing details on this, but this is a pretty good example of what you can accomplish by just using your paper. And so this is a very sturdy pocket and it has lots of room in here. I filled this up with these beautiful inserts and I'm creating these with those cut apart sheets from the collection. And so you're going to get a lot of room in here for your pictures and journaling, adding all of those memories. There's a little bit of extra room in the pockets as well. So you can include some additional flat keepsakes or mementos, but this is really easy to create and pretty fast. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make it together. So I've got A Wonderful Christmas from Echo Park. I chose this specifically because it had a really nice combination of the 3x4, 4x4, and 4x6 image cut aparts, which I will be using to add for our inserts. And of course, I'm also going to be using my new favorite gumdrop 100-pound cover cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse. We're going to start the base by adhering the pockets together, and I have them cut so that I can have them staggered, so you're going to see all of those nice inserts. And I do have the same width for each of them, I just have a different height. So for the first one, it is going to be 3 by 8. I've scored it at 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1, 7, 7 1/4, and 7 1/2. And this is going to give us a 1/2 inch tab to adhere this to the layer beneath it, and then the 1/4 inch will fold in sort of accordion style, and that is where we're going to gain the room in the pocket for all of those inserts that we want to add. So the next one is going to be 4 high by 8 wide, scored at 1/2, 3/4, and 1 inch, 7, 7 1/4, 7 1/2. The final pocket is 5 inches by 8, scored at 1/2, 3/4, and 1, 7, 7 1/4, and 7 1/2. So the only thing that changes is the height for these, but otherwise it is the same width and the same scoring measurements. So I'm going to begin with this first one, and I want to add my adhesive to those tabs in the back. So those portions were a 1/2 inch. I do want to have enough room for my adhesive, and I'm going to build from the front to the back so that I can keep everything in order. And I will be adding this with my Tombow. So I'm going to put one side on. And I will line that up so that this corner will be lined up with this first score. So set that into place. And then you can utilize some kind of clip or clothespin to put some pressure on that so that you can continue to work along. Then I'll add the adhesive to this tab. Remember to fold that over so that this score line lines up with the first score line. You can fold that over again and add a couple of more clips so that you're going to get that held in place while the glue sets up. I'm going to give that glue a couple minutes to set up, and then you want to repeat that process but add this now to the back pocket. Once again, give that a little bit of time for the glue to set up. In the meantime, you can bring in this last piece, and it is going to measure 10 high by 6 wide. I've scored it at 6 and also 7. So this is what you need to add for the bottom, and this will capture all those inserts inside. This process is going to be just the same with that 1/2 inch flap in the back. You want to adhere this so that this corner will line up with this corner where your score line is. So going right back to that tombow. It will help to hold this up so that you have it on the side of the score line that will line up exactly. Make sure to utilize those clips. And add your adhesive to this side. Make sure that will fold up properly, and then just press that into place right along the edge, and go ahead and clip that one more time. And you can see how this folds out now in an accordion style on the side, and this will give us the depth that we need for those inserts. And I have added my double-sided tape to this front portion, and I'm going to add my 2 glue combo here, and then fold this up. Hopefully that is easy to see on screen, and bring those together. You can put your hand down into that pocket so that you can get a good contact, and even set it down and press from the inside. So now this is going to wrap around the bottom, and that will hold all of your inserts in place. You see how nice that looks. We do want to add a little bit of extra structure for the back. So I have the last piece here for the base, and it's going to be 12 high by 6 wide, and I have it scored at 6, so just exactly in the middle. And I'm going to add my 2 glues to close this up, and then add my 2 glues again, and I'll attach it to the back side of the pocket base. I'm going to put the scored side on the top just so it will look a little bit nicer, and then bring these two together. We're going to have 3 layers of that nice sturdy cardstock now for the back, and it will be very, very sturdy. What you want to do now is develop your plan for adding your patterns to the pockets. It makes sense to me to alternate the scale or the color palette so that I can get a definite layering effect so they won't kind of blend together. So I'm going to bring in this back piece, and it will be 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. We're going to get a nice border of that green cardstock, and I have added my adhesive only to the very top because we want to tuck this pattern down into this. And so you see it will be positioned on the back side. So we're basically just capturing that tab on the back in between these layers. So let's just scoot that down in there. You see how easy that went in? And while I have it pulled away, I can still come in and add a little bit of my Tombow. Make sure that I have it centered and then press that into place. So it will still be a full piece in the pocket. Will make it easier for your inserts to come in and out. So the next piece is going to be 4 7/8 by 5 7/8, and we'll just repeat that same process, keeping it on the back side of that accordion fold. Slip that down in there. Little extra Tombow. Get it centered. And then press it into place. You can imagine how nice and thick this is starting to be with all of these layers. And Cartabella is pretty good paper as well. It has a beautiful texture to it, so that is going to help make this even more sturdy. So we're now into the next layer, and I'm just alternating these so that they will look like layering patterns. This one is going to be 3 7/8 by 5 7/8. Repeat that same process. Before we add anything to the very front, let's just go ahead and finish off the back. And so I am going to utilize my offcuts. It doesn't matter what you wind up with as long as it's 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. So make a combination that you like, and that way you won't have to cut into any additional pieces of the beautiful pattern paper. It's just gonna pull that up a little so I can get it centered. This is pretty versatile. You could easily make this for really any holiday or occasion. Just simply switch out your collection. So now we have the back finished. I have 2 layers for the front. And so for the pocket itself, we're going to be at 2 7/8 by 5 7/8. And then I want to put this next layer on specifically because I want to brighten up that cover. So now we're at 2 inches and then 5 7/8 wide. And that way I can get this strip running down the middle, and that will help to give us a better contrast when we add those flowers. Now those flowers are optional if you want to create this without that. You're just only going to need your paper trimmer and your scoreboard. And I think this is pretty good if you are making these for a craft fair or a batch craft. Then you don't have to worry about all those additional layering finishing details. Now that our pocket base is finished, let's go ahead and create some inserts. So as I mentioned, we're going to be utilizing the cut apart sheets. And so I have an intention to put the 3x4 in the front, the 4x4 in the middle, and then the 4x6 in the back. So what I want to do is just create little cards, as it were, with those cut apart images on the front. So for the 3x4, I am going to cut a piece of cardstock to be 4 by 6 and score it at 3. And then I'm cutting the image down to be 3 7/8 by 2 7/8. That way I can get a nice border. And then I also cut my offcuts so that they were that same measurement. And then I finished all of the sides. Now, in retrospect, when I finished, I thought it might be nicer to leave the back one off. If you're using this, for instance, for a non-traditional kind of scrapbook, you would want a place to include your journaling. So I would consider just finishing the inside and leaving that back part plain. So I think what I can do to get around that is just flip this over, and then I'll add it to there. I know I already have paper on it, but I want to have room for that journaling. So I'll just go ahead and continue to use my 2 glue combo. If it makes sense to you to have pattern paper all the way around, then that is fine as well. So I'll just line that up, and we'll just sandwich that pattern in between those layers, and no one will know. So now we can have our pictures here and then add our journaling to the back. I didn't do it that way for this one, so we'll have one of each, but you can see that I'm just going to get use out of all of those offcuts. So have those 4 by 4 cards, you see, and I will repeat that process. So for the 4 by 4 cards, it's going to be 4 high by 8 wide and scored at 4. And then I'm going to cut the image and the papers to be 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. And we're just going to add that second adhesive. So we'll have those insides finished, room on the back for journaling. This one has the pattern all the way around. So for my last set of inserts, I've got my cardstock cut to be 8 high by 6 wide, and then I scored it at 4. And then I'm going to cut those images and the pattern paper to be 3 7/8 by 5 7/8. And I did remember to leave the back on this one open for the journaling. So I'm just going to finish the front one here. So now I have 2 of these top folding inserts with the beautiful pattern paper. Both these have the cardstock on the back for the journaling. So let's tuck these in here. First, I want to show you how thick this is going to be, even before we add it to that pocket. That is a lot of room for finishing with your favorite details. And so let's put 2 of these in the back. 2 of these in this pocket, and 2 into the front. See how it looks so nice when you stagger them? You can see all of those beautiful layers together. Okay, so I am going to limit it to 1 of my favorite finishing details, just so that this can be a sweet and simple project. I am going to add some flowers. I just have 2 here, limited amount of foliage and some of that netting, and then I found some really chunky, nice baker's twine, and so I added those instead of my loopy twine bows. So I almost forgot to ask the question of the day. So do you purchase gifts for your pets? And I will say yes. For Lily, she will get some special treats that she enjoys, or maybe some catnip, but she's pretty simple and she would really just like to have a new Amazon box when it comes in. So we kind of treat her to that every now and again. I have picked up some clothing for her or a little hat, and she loses molecular cohesion and she just falls over on the floor, and so she does not enjoy getting dressed up. But if she did, she would probably have a pretty good wardrobe. So let me know in the comments if you purchase Christmas gifts for your pets. Okay, so this is it for day 6. If you enjoyed it, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And remember to come back tomorrow for day 7. We've got links in the description. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.